Hey, thank you so much for joining me today. In today's video, I'm taking you on a bit of a personal journey about how I navigated away from the hustle to choosing a path less traveled in the business world, which is the journey to a tiny business model. Now, we often hear that bigger is better when it comes to business, but what if there is a different way? A way that aligns success with simplicity, balance, and personal fulfillment. If that sounds good to you, keep watching because I'm going to be diving into the mindset changes and the three big transitions I took to design my tiny business model and the liberating results from choosing a smaller scale model that's cozy, more manageable, and just right for my life. And perhaps a tiny business might be right for you too. So if you're new to this channel, I'm Lydia Lee and I'm a work reinvention coach at Screw the Cubicle. And over the last decade, I've been working with budding and growing business owners to create meaningful work and design business models that align with the lifestyle choices that they want to have. So if you want to hang out with me and learn every single month about creating, launching, and growing a meaningful business that fits your personality type and the life you want to lead, you want to make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell button so that you'll be the first to know when new videos drop every single month. I'll first need to share the motivation for me to choose a tiny business model because it wasn't something that occurred to me kind of out of the blue, right? When I had an epiphany that a tiny business model was for me. What it actually took was being in the wrong type of business and that suffering and pain through building that type of business that wasn't in alignment with who I was in order to feel like, wow, something needed to change. And that happened during the first few years of my business when I reached my highest revenue year where everything was meant to be celebrated because it's such a milestone in my business to achieve all those big things in around 2015, 2016 of my business. And it was also the year I had my biggest burnout, right? Highest revenue year, most clients and recognition, but also my most miserable year of my business. And I had to take 3 months off my business to actually have a sabbatical in order to recover and recalibrate what I needed to do in order not to feel that this business is becoming a burden to my life, right? You can totally be chained to a sort of, business you don't want to wake up to, even when you're the one in charge. That's certainly what happened to me. So in that process, I had to kind of rebuild the business from the ground up and be more mindful about what I was making decisions on, so that what I was saying yes to in my business really reflected upon the kind of energy and capacity I had. And also, it was in tune with how I want to show up for my business, right? The first mindset shift for me was actually realizing that my success metrics might look different from my colleagues, other coaching practices, and other strategies that were potentially fed to me from the online business world, that scaling and growing bigger every single year is the only way to go and the only way to define success, right? So having those horse blinders on and not looking at other people's version of success in order to focus on what I truly wanted for my business. And I realized a few things that my success metrics look like this. Like it doesn't, I don't want to manage people. I don't want to have a big team, which I did have back in the day. I love working with people, but I thrived better in an environment where I worked with contractors, people that were not needing any management and training. They were really good at their work, and I hired them on a project basis rather than have several full-time staff. That relieved so much for me because I really truly hate meetings. um, Another thing was being really clear about how I wanted to work in my business. I had a dream to have a 3-day work week, right? Where my clients were in those 3 days. I was working, most mornings and have the afternoons off. And I also wanted to be able to travel every 3 months and have a lot of blank space in my calendar for other hobbies and interests that I value in my life, right? And also a simplicity system, right? That is easeful in how I work with clients, how I market. And that meant scaling back on having too many offers so that I could really focus and hone in on things that I really wanted to do and do that really well and master that pathway versus kind of being the Jack or Jill of all trades for everybody. So minimizing my effort, really focusing on things that I was clear about wanting in my business that allowed me to eradicate and eliminate the busy work that I was doing in my business to feel like I was bigger and better and versus actually just better, right? What can I do better in my business and serve more impactfully than just constantly growing for the sake of growth's sake? So there were many big transitions I had to take with my business to transform it from a overly big and not manageable business model to a just right for me model. But I think there are three main things that really made the biggest difference for me. Okay. The first thing was, I alluded to that in the last section of what I said, which is defining those ingredients, right? What were those success metrics that were important to me and me alone that gave me enough revenue, enough work fulfillment, and a schedule that really works around the life that I want to lead. But in order to really sometimes find out what that enough revenue is, I had to know what was enough. What's that enough number for my life? And it's a question that changes or answer that changes every year, depending on what I am working towards, what I prioritize in my life that's necessary, right? To have the financial goals to be met for it, right? But being more mindful, right, about how much my lifestyle costs, what I truly needed in my life, what was I was paying for that was actually not a good return on investment in my business, and really just working out those numbers in order to know what was as clear as I could get to my enough number so that when I reach that, that is success for me. It doesn't have to go bigger. I can stay there for a while if I want to, decrease it, increase it as I need to, right? Instead of having a complicated business. So that meant simplifying my business, right? And cutting down those expenses that were unnecessary in my business, like full-time staff, and also not offering as many things so that it doesn't take so much effort in order to launch and find clients for all these different offers that I wanted to have. But that also included, when you simplify your business, I think there's also a practice in simplifying your life, right? And that meant cutting down, again, expenses in my own life of being unconscious about how I was spending or what I was spending on and being more mindful about having a profitable business and having those numbers feel healthy, but also in my life, having a simpler life in a way, right? So that there's ways that I can enjoy that life instead of just spending more, right, in my life for things that are actually not serving me, right, as the human that I really want to be. So when I started simplifying my life and my business, that helped me to kind of fight the urge to always do more, to build more things, and be content with what's enough for my business and my life. The second big transition was being able to hone in on what I call a genius zone offer. Not to have multiple things that launch every single year, but having a more sort of simpler way to offer one big framework of my best work and then creatively designing sometimes some mini offers or what I call appetizer offers to lead people into the bigger offer. But it all is in the same journey and that map of working with me, right? So I felt that I could really master that work. I'm known for one thing, and there's sort of different creative ways to work with me on that one thing, right? So that actually helped in terms of actually having clients that find me more easily because I wasn't offering all the things. I was very, focused on one stage of a problem that I supported people on, and I just repeated that framework and mastered that framework as good as I can do it every single year, which allowed me to create better assets, a better process, streamline it better. And so the effort to show up for clients to work on that offer feels really simple and really easeful, right? The third big transition is embracing a minimalist marketing approach. Again, in the online business world, we're told that being everywhere, having all the things, to attract clients is the way to go. But I think actually that is just a method for burnout. So I had to get really honest with myself of what were the marketing activities that felt like natural to me, right? That where I communicate it in the way that I naturally do it. It doesn't feel complicated, and I don't have to do things I don't want to do in order to get seen. And so that practice allowed me to choose like one or two avenues of marketing and spreading the word. And most of them related to what I value, which are things like intimacy, personalization, and community and relationships. It wasn't mass marketing. It was a very cozy, invitational approach of marketing that allowed me to have a smaller community, but they were people that actually truly wanted to be there, right? So things like even the YouTube channel you're watching at the moment, this is a way that I love to communicate via video and auditory ways, whereas something like writing a whole blog and searching for the SEO keywords and all that stuff really makes me very angry and not in my zone of genius, right? So being able to be consciously choosing the platforms and being a minimalist or essentialist in the way that you choose what's the right way of marketing for you can really bring a lot more joy in those things that you will have to do in your business every single time. So, what has been the results of choosing a smaller scale, tiny business model for me? Well, for one, is I love my schedule, right? The schedule has the white space and the spaciousness I need in my weeks to feel like I'm not just focused only on business for my satisfaction, but actually all these other things that I can have in my life with time with my friends, travel, taking time off to do other hobbies that I really am interested in, and working about an average of 20 to 25 hours a week at most on average every single year. It's also allowed me to have a schedule where there are certain days, there's only 3 days a week that I work with clients, and the other 2 days are more flexible where I might work on my business stuff, but also it's time to plan to integrate myself into a new work week. It gives me time to kind of be prepared as a business owner and plan ahead instead of diving into the work every single time and having a very busy schedule filled with to-dos and client work. So that's been really lovely to experience. And of course, part of that is another benefit has been designing a schedule that meets my seasons of change in my life every single year. Some seasons I'm really focused on, helping, for example, my aging aunt who's all by herself in Malaysia, where I have to go back there and help her integrate into this next chapter of her life and get the support she needs to live a better quality life. Sometimes I dedicate a whole month just to help her with that. And so it allows me to have, knowing I have so much control over my time and what I do in my business and having such a minimal, you know, manageable business, it's given me the autonomy, right, to be able to make these choices for my life every year for whatever it is I want to prioritize in my personal life. And seasons of life do change as we evolve, right, into what we think are important to us every single year. And our business model should adapt to that or be able to be flexible enough to adapt to those needs without us losing out on revenue, right, and losing out on a thriving business. But most importantly, is, help me to understand how I operate every year, that there are certain months, certain times of the year that I have great full energy, and sometimes are meant for rest, and sometimes are meant for planning, and sometimes are meant for growth. And being able to consciously choose that instead of being just in go mode all year round has given me a sense of ease, right? And peace with my business so that I'm enjoying showing up for it because the business also shows up to provide me the life that I really want. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming down memory lane with me today and going through some of the ups and downs of choosing, a tiny business model, but eventually reaching a place that feels right for me. And maybe as you are watching this video, listening to my story and listening to some of the things that I talked about today, it may have sparked something for you as well that maybe a tiny business model might sound better for what you need. Or perhaps you've gone through a bigger model or seen other people go through a bigger model and felt something didn't align properly. And that this may have given you some hope that you can still be successful, you can still impact great people with your work and choose to be a tiny but mighty business. I would love for you to share your thoughts on where you're at with that, what you got out of this video, and of course share it with someone that you think would really benefit too. Thank you so much for your time spent with me today, and I will see you soon on the next video.